Hello everyone. We have already discussed the negotiation, importance of negotiation and various terms. Uh, in the framework, we are right now at a step on planning for negotiation. So a negotiation planning is very important because if we would not plan or do our homework, the groundwork, to start with to do our negotiation for the negotiation, it can actually backfire to the parties. So, because lack of planning, how this can go wrong when we neglect the other party's problems, right? Or we focus too much on price. That's what, if we don't plan properly in advance, that the focus has to be on real issue, not on the price much, if that is not the goal. So focus on positions instead of interests. So once we have put the offer there, the more too much emphasis on the offer, but not on the interests. Um, so neglect but na. So many a times, if we won't keep our reservation price fixed, and it is, if one is not assertive, not sure of when to lead the negotiation, or focus on the other best alternatives, then it can lead to unsuccessful negotiation and over adjust perception during the actual negotiation. So too much of adjustment, or you have your own perception about the interest of other parties. It can be over, it can be under. So all those things are the reflection of lack of planning. Okay, this is all this can go wrong at the time of negotiation. So what one can do for negotiation? Negotiation planning process actually can follow these steps. One should be clear of the specific objectives we want to achieve, analyze each party's strength and weakness, gather relevant information, recognize your counterparty's needs, identify facts and issues, establish a position on each issue, and then develop negotiation strategies and tactics, brief other stakeholders, and practice the negotiation. So, negotiation planning is one aspect. The other aspect one can see is, like, these days digitalization and the e-procurement tools, which have actually strengthened the negotiation these days. So whenever we want to start negotiation with our suppliers, or suppliers are interested to negotiate with the buyer, so these days, whether it is face to face or it is online, certain aspects, like the certain aspects of a request for proposal, they are already pre-filled, they are already filled in the templates. So the basic, or the other items, like which are introductory kind of things, regarding the products to be bought, so those can be pre-filled, right? One can create templates, one can ask for this information, the parties can ask for some data which can substantiate the negotiation process. So these things are already very handy, and this can be there with the parties. So for quite long, it has been like, other debate, that negotiation process has to be done face to face, and we don't have e-tools to carry out the negotiation. So these are again another myths. So many successful companies like GE, Motorola, they have actually come up with a very effective e-negotiation softwares. So they are very effective, but but when we talk about negotiation planning, the mode does not matter, but definitely the e-tools, like, they help to do the many activities faster, and it helps in it is useful that to access the data while negotiating, right? It has made at least that handy with all the parties that to access the data, and already pre-filled informations in form of various templates or in the proposals already there. So this becomes a very useful we can say that these are useful documents or data which can substantiate, the negotiation process. Now to do the planning, what parties must do, right? The first thing is very clear that the objectives should be very specific, right? Like on what aspect an agreement is required, right? An agreement must cover the purchase and goods or service, but what aspect, what is the real objective, or if it is more than one objective, how one can prioritize the objectives, right? If it is like it is the negotiation point is on quality, then one has to be very very clear on each and every specification that this is the main objective of getting the best quality product. Then one has to be clear of all the specification, all the objectives around the improved supplier quality. Okay, so this is the first aspect is very important. At the same time, one has to be very clear what are the needs and what are the wants. So we already have seen needs are something like which is unspoken, but one cannot compromise, right? So wants are still, these are likely to have. So there can be some leeway where party can listen to or agree on the supplier side, because the the wants of one party can be the needs of another party. So here there is a leeway where these two parties can actually come to an agreement. So a next step is analyze each party's strength and weakness. This is very important because if uh, it's a blessing if negotiation has is to be done by the existing supplier or a known supplier. So if that is even if that is the case, most of the companies, they fail to do the homework in part, like how the previous negotiations have gone, right? So for example, one must do thorough research on the counterparty. What is their experience, what are their negotiation styles, what are the different personalities involved in negotiation, what is the power, right? When we say power, it can be the financial strength or financial position of the other party. One must note that and must know what are the strengths of this and what are the suppliers needs, means other parties needs, wants and priorities also one can estimate beforehand. So if this data is there, then it is little easier to plan for the negotiation. So for example, supplier wants to have exclusive rights to produce for giant manufacturer, so if one has this data, this information beforehand, like that means like they are good at the capacity, right? If we know this already, then we can actually save a lot of time and we can just focus on our goal and objective. Gathering relevant information is very important, right? So many companies, they do mock negotiations before going to the actual negotiation, which is very essential. The companies, they form the parties, and they get to know through this mock negotiations, like what can be, like what could be the other parties needs and the interest. But gathering relevant information is very important, right? So if we know the past data, right, as I've mentioned you, if the party is lucky that they have been negotiating with that supplier in the past, so that who are the negotiators, what were the areas of disagreements in the past. So that really helps to speed up, the planning process. Who has the most to lose, or who has the most to gain? So all those practices, one can do before negotiation. So practicing and mock negotiation is a kind of like, strategy one can adopt while planning the negotiation. But that mock can help in coming out with various scenarios, or various needs, wants, and issues of, suppliers or other parties. So to get the relevant information, one can even consult other buyers who have been dealing with the same suppliers. So that helps in gathering relevant information before negotiation. So, and one must review the counterpart needs, right? What are the key issues which are critical to the other party? For example, here it can be supplier, but may not be as critical to you, because as I've mentioned, it is very important to see where the leeway is there, right? So whether it's a give and take is really essential, right? So that's why, this leeway will help, the negotiator to negotiate on that aspect, like, showing that, if this will be, if this critical issue would be met, then the negotiator can ask for their own needs, to the other party. So before negotiation, identify ranges of acceptable outcomes for each and every issue should be kept in mind, setting priority in the event that concessions or trade-offs are required. So that's what, if this give and take is nothing but, when we know in advance, that what is a critical issue of the counterpart, which might not be critical to us, like, the buyer. So that's where, buyer can negotiate on concessions. It's a kind of give and take, so that has to be planned upfront before going for negotiation. So it is very important to segregate facts and issues. The facts are the verifiable reality or truths, like, one should not waste time on doing debate on that, so generally when we go for negotiation, we if we deviate from our objective, we know that the fact is not the issue here. The issue is the items or topics to be resolved during negotiation. But spending time on facts, or spending less time on issues can result in an unsuccessful negotiation. Identify all the critical issues and outcomes that each party seeks to resolve through the negotiation, right? If price is not at all, look, your competitive bidding has already given price, so price is will become a fact now. So one must, negotiate only on the issue which needs to be resolved. So next point is establish a position on each issue, right? So every issue, as negotiation is going on, so parties should establish position that offer agility and flexibility. Okay, so that's why now we would see that, why this BATNA, right? So best alternative thing, will be useful for both the parties. So for example, this minimum is nothing but, this is the reservation thing, which buyer can have, right? So that's what we have seen, if you remember, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This is BATNA, we have already seen in the last session. This is very important to keep, right? So see here, in the planning stage only, we should have, range of positions. So minimum acceptable position or BATNA, maximum or ideal outcome, most likely position located between first and second. So, if one can have, this BATNA price, this is the minimum price one can pay, so this is the BATNA, right? But this is the target. So if this positions, like, the range of positions are already discussed right? Before negotiation, they are already planned. So this will be very useful. Most likely position located between first and second, right? For example, here minimum target here and supplier. Suppose this is the batna of buyer, right? And this is the supplier's batna. You can see that here it is very difficult that two entities will form any zone of agreement, right? So here this is a less likely chance that this negotiation will end up into a agreement. So that's why any proposal or counter proposal offered outside this range is likely to be rejected by other party. What is that zone? So as long as this supplier and buyer would have some zone which is called settlement zone or zone of negotiation, where none of the batna or reservation price is compromised. So such positions, establish position on each issue, so for every issue one must be very clear of the range, okay, how much one can forego what, right? So is there any possibility of entering into zone of negotiation? So this kind of planning, right? Range of position, minimum acceptable position, maximum or ideal outcome, and most likely. So some target, the what is the most likely outcome can be there. So this if this is there in mind for every issue, so this is probably one can look that can be for price, but the similar thing can be there for other aspects like delivery, like order, or order quantity placement, right? Or and there can be issues like revenue sharing if it is a new product development related negotiation, where even buyer doesn't know, like what would be the actual product coming out of this joint venture of new technology. So they can actually negotiate on revenue sharing model, like if they are working on a new technology, what should be the revenue sharing model. So one should know that to what extent buyer can go for sharing revenue, and to what extent supplier should accept that revenue, right? So definitely they will have now what would be there in their mind while calculating reservation price is the cost which the cost, the effort, the risk supplier is taking to venturing into new technology, new R&D aspect. So there can be the same the here this looks to be a price issue, but similar uh, zone, settlement zone, or at least the range of positions can be built for various revenue sharing context, right? So what are the range of positions? So range of positions can be done for each issue. For example, for price can be one, for revenue sharing factor can be another one, right? For even for sharing risks, what if product would fail, so who would bear the loss, how much loss, and how to share the cost, how to share the loss. So those things, like those the range of positions should be clear for every issue in the negotiation. So this is the next step: establish a position on each issue, and then develop a negotiation strategy and accompanying tactics. So how one can approach all this thing, there should be a proper strategy, an overall approach, right, to reach to mutual beneficial agreement with the supplier, right? Definitely the this is a two parties, like they would hold different points of view. So what would be the right strategy, like if there is no zone of agreement, what should be the strategy, or how to approach a proper position, particular position. For that there can be a different strategy. Who would initiate? That would be different strategy. How one can approach, even there if there is a zone of settlement, how one can approach to this zone. Therefore for all such this thing, there one must devise the strategy, and to support this strategy there should be proper means which can help in accomplishing the strategy, like the action plan, right? So all those tactics will help us in achieving this action plan. Who, what, where, when, and how to negotiate, this tactics can be used. So all these things should be aware of, like it should be planned ahead of the negotiation, right, with the proper strategy in place. So now, what is the strategy? What is the tactics? What are the different tactics which can be used? What can be the strategy for negotiation? That one that we will discuss, because see here, we have done the steps, so identify, establish position on each issue, right? So what strategy one would adopt, right? So we will discuss on all these tactics, various possibilities of tactics and strategies for the negotiation. So this is, so in today's session we have uh, we have seen the importance of uh, negotiation planning, right, and what can go wrong if during the negotiation, if we have not done our planning properly, and what are the various steps of negotiation planning. Thank you.